Hey everyone, and welcome to another PokeTips. Today I'm going to be showing you 3 new ways of using dice that may be useful to you when you don't have the best memory or get caught up in the game and forget to do things. One of them you probably won't use a lot of the time, but the other 2 focus on keeping your thinking space free for focusing on the game in hand and should help you out on something that can crucially cost you some damage and even the game sometimes. This first one is before the game has even started, and I saw one of my opponents do this at the ECC. At the beginning of the game, when you draw your beginning hand of 7 cards, if you or your opponent doesn't have a basic in hand, you must show who you're playing your hand, shuffle back into the deck and draw another 7, repeating this until you get a basic Pokemon. With decks such as Durant and more recently Terrakion running as little as 4 basics, this can happen a lot, so it can be hard to keep track of how many times this has happened, and it is very important since you or your opponent get to draw an extra card per mulligan that has occurred. The current procedure is that you wait until your opponent finally gets a basic after however many mulligans, and then you draw your extra cards. Now if your opponent has mulliganed 10 times, you could start to lose focus and forget how many mulligans have occurred, so follow this simple tip if you ever find yourself struggling. And it's pretty simple really, just take one of your dice you'll be using for damage counters and place it on top of your deck and change the number according to how many mulligans your opponent has taken. Then, when they get a basic, you can draw the required amount of cards from your mulligan. Easy. However, the practice of drawing mulligan cards after your opponent has finally found a basic isn't always implemented until higher level tournaments, and an alternative is to draw your card after each mulligan shown. Just make sure you've put down your prizes first. The second thing a dice can help you with is the amount of plus powers you have played in a turn, and this is one of the most common things I've seen players forget when they're playing. Plus power is sometimes a card that you don't need to use on your turn, but you will find it more useful in your discard pile since you maybe run more junk arms to get it back later on, or you just want it out of your deck since you aren't going to need it for this specific game. However, even when they aren't being played intentionally, the extra damage can matter, so use this simple tip to keep track of how many you've played already. Since you have to discard every trainer and supporter you play straight away, take one of your larger dice that isn't used for damage on a Pokemon and place it next to your active with the amount of plus powers you've played on that turn. This will prompt you when making an attack to add the extra damage to both the Pokemon you're attacking and any recall damage that occurs. It's a simple thing to forget when making lots of plays during a turn, and this can help you to remember. And the final one implies the same strategy by using the bigger, translucent dice to calculate something you don't want to be trying to remember when carrying out a turn, and that is when time is called. With the latest rules, when time is called in a game, you must play 3 extra turns from the turn just finished, and whoever has taken the most prizes wins the game. However, the amount of turns gone by can sometimes be lost in action as turns become longer, since players need to win the game now rather than playing a full game, so use this to keep track. Just take your translucent die that is different from your damage counters and place it between your active Pokemon and the opponent's active, with the one facing up when the first turn of extra time begins, and then change it to 2 and 3 when the turns add up. This will simply help you keep track without having to wonder about whose turn it is and when the last turn will be taken. So overall, these are very standard things to remember, and some of you may not have a problem remembering them, but I've seen many players forgetting these kind of things all the way up to finals of important games. So if you get into the habit of using them, then why not? Just don't take too long over them and your mind will be free to concentrate on the plays in hand rather than other rulings. I hope you enjoyed this PokeTips, and be sure to stay tuned to my channel by clicking the subscribe button in the center of your screen, and I'll see you next time.